I sometimes think we are too much impressed by the clamor of daily events. Newspaper headlines and the television screens give us a short view. They so flood us with the stop-press details of daily stories that we lose sight of one of the great movements of history. Yet it is the profound tendencies of history and not the passing excitements that will shape our future.
John F. Kennedy, or JFK, was the 35th President of the United States, serving from 1961 until his assassination in 1963. He was born in Brookline, Massachusetts on May 29, 1917, into a wealthy and politically connected family. JFK grew up in the shadow of his father, Joseph Kennedy, who was a successful businessman and later served as the United States ambassador to the United Kingdom. After attending Harvard and serving in the Navy during World War II, JFK was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1947 and the U.S. Senate in 1953. He became known for his political charisma, his ability to inspire others, and his commitment to public service.
It might be said now that I have the best of both worlds, a Harvard education and a Yale degree. 1952, when I was thinking about running for the United States Senate, I went to the then Senator Smathers and said, "George, what do you think?" He said, "Don't do it. Can't win. Bad year." In 1956, I was at the Democratic Convention, and I said I didn't know whether I'd run for vice president or not. So I said, "George, what do you think? This is it. They need a young man. It's your chance." So I ran and lost. And in 1960, I was wondering whether I ought to run in the West Virginia primary. Don't do it. That stage you can't possibly carry. And actually, the only time I really got nervous about the whole matter at Los Angeles was just before the balloting. George came up and said, "I think it looks pretty good for you."
In 1960, JFK ran for president against Richard Nixon and won a close election. His inaugural address, delivered on January 20, 1961, contained the famous phrase, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
JFK's presidency was marked by several important initiatives, including the creation of the Peace Corps, the Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War.
So it was in the fall of 1962, when it was learned that in Cuba, 90 miles from the shores of the United States, the Soviet Union had begun building missile emplacements. In this crisis, both the nation and the man were tested for the will and the courage to defend freedom. The president ordered a military quarantine of Cuba and bluntly declared that the Russians must halt what he called this clandestine, reckless, and provocative threat to world peace. The line had been drawn. A challenge that invoked the specter of a nuclear confrontation had been issued. This was the burden that John Kennedy accepted. This was the crushing responsibility that was his. It was so in Berlin and Vietnam. It was so in the Congo and in the United States.
To fulfill the role we cannot avoid on the world scene, we must re-examine and revise our whole arsenal of tools. First, we must strengthen our military tools. We are moving into a period of uncertain risk and great commitments, in which both the military and diplomatic possibilities require a free world force so powerful as to make any aggression clearly futile. If we are to keep the peace, we need an invulnerable missile force powerful enough to deter any aggressor from even threatening an attack that he would know could not destroy enough of our own forces to prevent his own destruction. For as I said upon taking the oath of office, only when our arms are sufficient beyond doubt can we be certain beyond doubt that they will never be employed.
He also supported the civil rights movement and delivered a historic speech in 1963 calling for racial equality.
Now the time has come for this nation to fulfill its promise. The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city, north and south. It is not enough to pin the blame on others, to say this is the problem of one section of the country or another. A great change is at hand, and our task, our obligation, is to make that revolution, that change, peaceful and constructive for all.
John F. Kennedy also played an important role in the space race, setting a goal for the United States to put a man on the moon before the end of the 1960s. In 1961, Kennedy declared in a speech to Congress that the U.S. should commit to landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. This goal was accomplished in 1969 when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon as part of the Apollo 11 mission. Kennedy's vision for space exploration and his challenge to the U.S. to achieve this feat helped spur advancements in technology and scientific discovery.
Space is open to us now, and our eagerness to share its meaning is not governed by the efforts of others. We go into space because whatever mankind must undertake, free men must fully share. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish. But in a very real sense, it will not be one man going to the moon. It will be an entire nation, for all of us must work to put him there.
However, JFK's presidency was cut short by his assassination on November 22, 1963, while riding in an open car during a parade in Dallas, Texas.
It's probably the most famous home video in history, also the most closely scrutinized and one of the most controversial, too. While many people believe that the Zapruder film holds answers in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, for some, it just created more questions that still go on today.
The assassination is still the subject of much controversy and speculation, with numerous conspiracy theories circulating about who was responsible. One of the most well-known conspiracy theories surrounding John F. Kennedy's assassination is that Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone, and that there was a larger plot to kill the president. This theory has been perpetuated by many over the years, and there are a number of reasons why people believe it to be true.
New details tonight on the 1963 assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy in Dallas. Researchers say they have found proof the alleged assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, was involved in a CIA operation 3 months before the assassination. Today, JFK assassination expert Jefferson Morley told reporters his legal team has documentation of the still classified covert operation approved by senior CIA officials. The agency apparently used Oswald for intelligence weeks before the shooting. The CIA has until December 15th to publish the remaining file.
One of the most commonly cited reasons for this theory is the magic bullet theory. This theory posits that the bullet that killed Kennedy and injured Texas Governor John Connally could not have caused the damage that it did if it had traveled in a straight line, as the Warren Commission concluded. Instead, some believe there were multiple shooters. Another aspect of the conspiracy theory is the alleged involvement of organized crime figures in the assassination. Some believe that Kennedy was killed in retaliation for his efforts to crack down on organized crime, and that groups like the Mafia had a hand in the plot. Another theory suggests that elements within the CIA were responsible for Kennedy's death. Proponents of this theory point to Kennedy's strained relationship with the agency, particularly in the aftermath of the Bay of Pigs fiasco. They also point to the fact that Oswald had connections to the intelligence community. Finally, there is the theory that Kennedy was killed as part of a larger government conspiracy. Some believe that Kennedy's plans to withdraw troops from Vietnam and his opposition to the military-industrial complex made him a target for powerful interests within the government who wanted him out of the way.
Dallas, Texas, 16 years ago, the last moments of President John F. Kennedy's life. Here is the first sign of trouble. Kennedy reacting with his hands to something. his wife Jacqueline looking at him, and a man with a raised umbrella standing only yards away. Moments later, 2 bullets slammed into the president from behind. Why is there an open umbrella near the president when this is against Secret Service rules and the temperature in Dallas on November 22, 1963 was 68, skies sunny? And who is holding this umbrella? These questions have been the subject of research and debate for 16 years. Now this man, Robert Cutler, is charging that the man holding the umbrella was part of a conspiracy to kill JFK. Cutler, a Massachusetts architect and Harvard graduate, has been researching the JFK assassination for 13 years and is convinced his theory is correct. Basically, this is Cutler's theory. On a warm, sunny November day, just like this one in Dealey Plaza, a man held up an umbrella just as President Kennedy approached in his car. The man shot a dart into Kennedy's throat, the umbrella being the firing mechanism. Now, all this sounds a little far-fetched, but some researchers believe it, and they point to some hard evidence. First of all, the dart or flechette. This dart was found in a Hartford gun show in 1977, and Cutler believes it is similar to the one allegedly fired at Kennedy. It is a matter of record that the CIA developed such a dart and a firing system for it. This man, Richard Bissell, an ex-CIA agent who lives in Farmington, confirms the weapon's existence. This is Bissell's home in Farmington. He refuses to talk to us on camera, saying he's too busy. But over the phone, he did tell me that the CIA did indeed have a dart or flechette weapon well before JFK was assassinated. So, in 1963, the umbrella firing dart did exist, and Cutler has made extensive drawings detailing how the dart could have been fired. But although the umbrella man was just 26 yards away from JFK, the question of firing a dart with accuracy must be raised. Hartford assassination researcher George Michael Ivica believes Cutler may be onto something and has investigated the umbrella weapon. Wouldn't it be hard to shoot a dart at a moving target from an umbrella?
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
Tell me why.
Well, Charles Sensony, the man who developed it, who gave testimony in 1975 to the Church Intelligence Committee, said that it was both operational, he's the one who invented it, and that it was accurate up to 100 meters.
When the limousine came around the corner like this, the difference between here and where he actually fired is only 10 degrees. In other words, the target was coming directly at you. So it was really quite simple to track and then fire at the right time.
And so you're convinced that the umbrella man fired a flechette like this into President Kennedy's throat?
The reason I'm convinced is that this is exactly right. This 5mm diameter is just about right for the observed 3 to 7mm diameter of the actual throat wound, which is a small, round wound of entry. The doctors in Parkland said so.
At first, the doctors at Parkland Hospital in Dallas did believe JFK had been shot in the front of the neck. In the handwritten autopsy released through the Freedom of Information Act, Dr. Malcolm Perry, one of the doctors on the scene in Dallas, is quoted as noting the massive wound of the head and a second puncture wound of the low anterior neck in approximately the midline. When this handwritten autopsy report was typed for official distribution, the word puncture was inexplicably taken out and the word smaller put in its place. Soon after noting the puncture wound, Dr. Perry performed a tracheotomy on JFK, thereby obliterating the original neck wound. Today, the official government line is JFK was shot only from the rear and his throat wound was an exit wound. Critics want to know what happened to the dart that allegedly hit JFK in the throat. Cutler points to this document, a receipt signed by 2 FBI agents acknowledging the acceptance of a missile removed from JFK's body. This missile receipt has been a mystery for 16 years and a prime piece of conspiracy evidence. Francis X. O'Neill is one of the FBI agents who signed for the missile. He's now retired and lives in Guilford. For the first time on television, O'Neill speaks out about the missile controversy.
Yes, the missile was 2 pieces of fragmentations of a bullet which was taken from the head of President Kennedy at the autopsy in Bethesda Naval Hospital.
Why would it be labeled a missile if there were 2 fragments?
Oh, I think you'd have to ask the naval corpsman who typed it up at the particular time. There were just 2 fragments. I accepted the package, possibly because it was just one very small package. You might have thought that there was just 1 missile there.
All right, let me get this straight. There were 2 fragments in the packet that was handed to you, but you signed a receipt for a missile. Now, that's not very exact, and FBI men are usually very exact.
Oh, I think under the circumstances at the time, yes. The corpsman was let in just for this one specific thing, to type up the particular receipt. And I knew what I was getting. I was getting 2 particular fragmentations.
So you think the Warren Commission really had the whole thing under control?
Well, if you mean under control, did they do an exhaustive investigation? Yes.
Bill O'Reilly, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
It is important to note that while these conspiracy theories may be compelling to some, the current official statement is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. However, the continued fascination with these theories underscores the enduring mystery and intrigue that surrounds one of the most tragic events in American history. Despite the tragic end to his life, JFK is remembered as one of the most popular and inspirational presidents in American history. His legacy continues to inspire generations of Americans, and his life and death are still the subject of books, films, and television programs.
I spoke a year ago today to take the inaugural, and I'd like to paraphrase a couple of statements I made that day by saying that we observe tonight not a celebration of freedom, but a victory of party. For we are sworn to pay off the same party debt our forebears ran up nearly a year and 3 months ago. Our deficit will not be paid off in the next 100 days, nor will it be paid off in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor perhaps even in our lifetime on this planet, but let us begin. Remembering that generosity is not a sign of weakness, and that ambassadors are always subject to Senate confirmation. For if the Democratic Party cannot be helped by the many who are poor, it cannot be saved by the few who are rich. So let us begin.